The city of Shenyang has reached a record of the highest temperature since 1951. It reached 38.4 degrees Celsius. If you think that is not high enough, and there's another record for you to know, I've got a chart with me. From the 28th of July until the 3rd of August, the highest temperature in the city of Shenyang, so 35.5 degrees on the 28th, and then 37.3 on the 30th, 37.5 on the 31st, and on the 2nd of August, 38.4. Yesterday, the highest temperature is 37 degrees and more. And today, the highest temperature is still 37 degrees and more. For 8 days in a row, the highest temperature in the city has been higher than 35 degrees Celsius. And this is another record. And I'm now in the downtown area, not very far from me. It's a business street. Usually, you could see a lot of visitors and vehicles in the surrounding area. However, it is not the same case today. For example, in the shade of the trees, you could find few people, and people are walking in the shade in order to avoid the hot sunshine. And I'm reporting to you, and the sunshine is so hard, so hot that I cannot open my eyes. Actually, the body felt temperature must be higher than 40 degrees Celsius. It is a very big challenge to all the areas, aspects of the city of Shenyang. We are joking these days. Do you have an air conditioner in your house? And we think that we are surviving thanks to the possession of an air conditioner in the house. And we are sweating all the time. We are doing 2 experiments to show you how hot it is now in the open air. I've touched the ground. I've prepared a lunchbox, and here is an egg. This is a raw egg, and I'm putting it. Now it's 3 o'clock 8 minutes in the afternoon. Let's witness after how many seconds could we boil this raw egg. And beside me there is a black vehicle. If I touch it, I can feel the heat. And I'm pouring the water onto the surface of the car. We pour out a little bit. Immediately, it is dried up, leaving a trace on the surface of the vehicle, and it's just an immediate action. Let's see that once again. Do you see it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. It's around 20 seconds or more to have the evaporation directly from the surface of the car. Now you can tell how hot it is in the open air and how strong is the sunshine. And until now, this is where we have poured the water the traces have completely disappeared. The hottest temperature of the day usually occur at this moment. The sunshine and the reflection of the sunshine from the ground would make our life much hotter than before. And the highest temperature, the record high, appeared also around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. In these days, in the markets, the air conditioners are sold very well, and we are even run out of supply. Even some workers for the installation of the air conditioners, they have to come to the city of Shenyang from other cities to meet the needs of the customers. Another challenge related to the utilization of the air conditioner is the supply of electricity. For many localities, we have run at a level higher than our capacity. And this is the National Grid company. They are branch in Shenyang. And we'd like to give them an interview, see whether they would differentiate the peak hours of the utilization of electricity. So we are going up. In recent days, it's really hot and makes us really uncomfortable, especially for the small children and elderly people. And some have even suffered from the heat stroke. We say that we can survive, it's only because we have air conditioner. More than 80% of the families, they are highly dependent on the air conditioners. This is the control center of the electricity supply group. Good afternoon, and this is the director in charge of the center. Please say hi to our audience. Good afternoon to you. I'm the Zhang Zhengguo. I'm the director of the distribution center. We know that in recent days, because the temperatures are very high, what are the changes in the utilization of the electricity? Because the temperatures are going up, and records have been broken again and again. And the consumption of electricity has surpassed 118 million kilowatts per hour. What is the normal level? It's about only 80 million to 90 million kilowatt hours. So in these days, the supply and demand is unusually high. Yes, we have the full loaded transformer to guarantee the supply of electricity for the whole city. In the map, you could see the red color. Today is Saturday, so the load is relatively smaller than the working days because you don't have the industrial consumption side. So in comparison with the electricity demand in Friday and Thursday, today is better already. For more than 70% of the load, it's already in orange color. Does it mean that 70% of the full load capacity? Right. What about yesterday? Is it more urgent than today because it was Friday? Exactly. Please look at the curve. What does this mean? The blue one, okay, the violet one, the purple one, this is for yesterday. And the lower line, the blue one, the blue part shows the consumption for today. From the chart, you could see that today we have consumed less electricity. Today, the consumption is estimated at 2.5 million kilowatts per hour. Yesterday, it's more than the double of today's figure, is at 5.94 million kilowatts per hour. You have made some measures in order to differentiate the peak hours of utilization, right? Yes. We have reported this to the central government. So, according to their guidance, for the smaller size of industries, it is suggested that between 11 o'clock to 15 o'clock, we ask them to slow down the production or even halt a little bit their production, so that there will be more supply for the residents in the city. A short break in the production in the smaller industries and enterprises, right? Yes. Yesterday, we have differentiated the peak hours for 3 regions. That is what I've heard. Yes, some of them are residential areas and some other are commercial centers. In Changbaidao, a fast-developing area of the city, some smaller business centers, we have communicated with them in order to differentiate the consumption of electricity or even to cut down some of the consumption. And for the load of today, we don't have to differentiate anymore, right? Yes. According to the information, some military factories and other industries, they have entered into a vacation period. So starting by the next week, there will be little consumption of electricity in their places. So in the future, it is expected that the situation would be improved compared to yesterday. Yesterday, it has been a very big challenge, right? Yes. We have formed 25 groups of the emergency response, and people are taking their turns to stay in the position of their work. Once there's a problem, we will go to the place and fix all the bugs with the network in order to guarantee the whole supply for the city. This is for the whole city? No, it's only for the city part. And the suburbs not included. Outside the lines, the blue lines, is the countryside and the suburbs area. We are more focused in the downtown area because here we have the major consumption of electricity. Yesterday, a lot of the places have reached 90% of the full load. For example, in the Shenyang area, it's very crowded place and service areas. That's why yesterday there's a big increase in their consumption of electricity. So today, since the consumption is not as high as yesterday, it's like a break for the distribution and the transformer of the company. Yes, our network is also under pressure. We are doing our best to guarantee the supply for the city, and we are also recommending the residents to set the temperatures of their air conditioner by 1 degree higher. It is at the same time good for the economy of the electricity. On the other side, is also good for your health, because when you travel from the outside into the cool room with the air conditioner, it's easy for you to catch a cold. So it's recommended to keep the temperature inside your house at a rational level. Sometimes there will be problems with the supply of electricity. Yes, in the old city area like Huanggu, the network facilities are old ones. So the electricity supply company of Huanggu, they are working around the clock. They have constantly working for 48 hours non-stop in order to give a sufficient supply of electricity to the residents. I'll give you an example. For an old building, in the past, there were only 10 households using electricity, but today we have 100 households in the same building to use electricity, so it will go above the capacity. It will break the limits of the capacity of the network. That's why sometimes problem does occur. So dear audience, when you are enjoying the air conditioner inside your house, please do not forget that there are workers their position around the clock to secure the supply of electricity. And if possible, please raise the temperature in your air conditioner by at least 1 degree. It's a big challenge for the capacity of supply of electricity for each company. It means that in this sweltering months of summer, everyone should contribute its own part. Now, in the future, when there's another round of high temperature, should we adopt again those measures of differentiation of peak hours, or should we wait for the next round of forecast? We think that the possibility is not very big, because we are also following the development of the temperatures and of the weather. Yesterday, it's an extraordinary case. We think that it's hard for us to have a repeated case, a similar case as yesterday. And here, on behalf of our company for the electricity supply, I'd like to pass to you one information. We will do our best to ensure that you can always have a secured supply of electricity. Yes, as you have mentioned, in order to have a sustainable cool weather inside your house, a lot of people are working constantly, and it's a hard work for all of them. If possible, please raise the temperature by at least 1 degree in your house. It will be a big favor to the workers of the company of electricity supply. And we have also launched the early warning on the high temperature. And it's only by the synergy of all the parties engaged could we win the battle against the scorching temperature. In this high temperature, we may need to take several showers, and in normal days, only 1 time of shower would be sufficient. Now let's go downstairs, and later we'll talk about the challenge to the water supply. In the scorching temperature, it's like we are in a steamer. So the groundwater is also dropping. Nowadays, in this hot weather, the water supply network is also under pressure. And for several areas, we have limited the supply period of water so that the water resources could be more evenly distributed. According to our information, the water supply in the city is also above the capacity. We hope that you could do something to save more water. For example, the water that you have used to clean the vegetables and the food, you could save it to clean the house or put it into the toilet. And when you are washing your hands or washing your face, you could save the water. And now in some places, lack of water, there are some emergency vehicles. And now I'm calling upon all of you to join our battle against the lack of water. Talking about the lack of water, the supplier of water in the locality has also started to draw water from other reservoirs in the neighboring areas. I'm showing to you this footage. It's in the Wetland National Park, which is located in the Faku district of Shenyang City. In the past, we call it the hometown of the white cranes, because every year in spring and in autumn, a lot of white cranes would come to this place to have a temporary stop and get their energy refilled, and then they can move on for their migration. However, today, 4/3 of the wetlands are dried up. You could see that these places already dried up. They used to be the wetland. So without water, the vegetation dies and the fish dies. It's a very sad fact, and we should not ignore that. More than 12 million mu of farmland is now suffering from the hot temperature. For example, the corn field has been devastated because currently is exactly the moment that you should do the irrigation in the cornfield, and it's at this moment that the corn plant demands the maximum amount of water. And now with this high temperature and lack of water, we could say that this year we could not expect a good harvest of the cornfield. Now it's 3 o'clock and 30 minutes in the afternoon. On the surface of the pit road, you could feel the hot temperature. 2 days ago, we have reached the highest record for more than 60 years. It has reached 38.4 degrees Celsius. People walking on the streets, they have with them the sunshades. And now we are paying attention to the people who are working in the open air, for example, the policemen, the dustmen, and people working for the railway station, and the messengers. They have to stick to their own position, and they cannot stay in the shade or stay inside of the building. whoever they are doing their own job in a difficult way to secure the whole city and to maintain the normal operation of all the channels. People living in the northeastern part of China are not used to this high temperature because normally, even in summer, the temperature would not go above 32 degrees Celsius. For these 8 days in the past in a row, the temperature is always above 35 degrees Celsius, and in these recent days, the temperature even reached more than 38 degrees. So in hospitals, more people, more cases due to the heat. We have followed the nurses and the doctors in the emergency department of the hospitals. They have an emergency plan. All the nurses, drivers, doctors of the hospitals, they have cancel their summer holiday in order to secure their work and the medical care for the sick people. Every 40 minutes, they should go out to pick them sick up, and they should go to rescue the people who are feeling uncomfortable under the high temperatures. And in recent days, due to the heat, the clinic departments, they are very crowded. What are the sickness and other diseases brought by the heat? The most usual case is the heat stroke. We're now at a hospital. A lot of people are coming for the emergency medical care. Inside we have the air conditioner, so directly we can feel the comfort inside. And we have invited Mr. Yan Zhifeng, the doctor in charge of the emergency department. Did you have this, all these beds in the past? No. This used to be an emergency pathway. It's where we would put the ambulances in the past. So since the 28th of July, you must have received a lot of cases due to the heat. Yes, in 4 days, we have received 400 people. It's much higher than the usual level. Yes, it has even doubled. It means per day there will be 100 people, 100 cases related to the heat. How many of them are directly hit by the sun and the heat? More than 80%. And in the cases, the majority of the sick people, they are the elderly ones, because they are not so resistant to the high temperature. And they don't like to use the fans or the air conditioners. So at the same time, they're not resistant to the high temperature, and on the other hand, they don't want to use the modern facilities. That's why they will usually suffer from the heat stroke. A lot of them are very old, above 70 years old, between 70 and 80. Most of them are under heat stroke. It's very easy for the heat to get to them. And also for the females who have just given birth to the children. and some other labor forces. And for the soldiers who are going through a military trainings, they are also the objects, easy targets of the heat strokes, but most of them are the elderly people. For the people suffering, for the people above 50 years old suffering from the heat stroke, the death rate is above 80%. I've never expected this high level of death rate. So what are the possible protections for us? First of all, please avoid staying or walking in a high temperature area, especially between 11 o'clock and 16 o'clock. When it is very hot outside and when you're in the house, please close the curtain. When there isn't enough circulation of the air, and you have at the same time the elderly people or the young mothers, you should keep the circulation of the air and try to change the air in the house once every 2 hours. And also you should keep up with the drinks with salt. You could add up some salt and sugar in the water that you drink. This is also good for your health. Recently, I heard another disease which is called the thermal radiation sickness. We have different levels of heat stroke. The highest level is the thermal radiation sickness. There are two categories. First is for the elderly people and labor force. And second, sportives and the soldiers in the training programs. Currently, the situation has been stabilized. And when a person has the hyperpyrexia and the temperature of the body reaches 42 degrees, at that moment, due to the thermal radiation sickness, the death rate would be very high. However, for the people suffering from the heat stroke, it's not recommended to directly use the febrifuge. It is more recommended to use the ice to cool your body down. You should not drink directly the cooled drinks or frozen drinks because your stomach will not be used to the sudden change of the temperature inside the body. Now, it's the first time for me to know that you should not use the febrifuge when in the case of a heat stroke. When the body temperature reaches 42 degrees, usually you could see the degradation of the organs inside his body. And the person within a coma, yes. And there are other syndromes, right? Yes. But for some other cases, their situation are more stabilized. They are only suffering from a heat exhaustion. In past summers, we don't have so many cases, right? Exactly. It's not usual for us to install all the beds here in the hall. But this year is extremely high number of people suffering from the heat stroke. And here, even we are in a city in the northeastern part of China, we feel higher temperature than in the southern part of the country. In certain areas of the city, the temperature may even reach 40 degrees Celsius. Apart from all the measures you have mentioned, what could we do once there's a heat stroke? For example, in the case of the thermal radiation sickness, what could we do? When you feel the preliminary syndromes, for example, you feel dizzy and uncomfortable, you should first cool your body down. You could stay in the air conditioning room. You could use the physical way to cool the temperature down. You could also lie down to have a smooth breathing. In order to avoid choking, you could lie on one side of the body. However, usually people cannot discover their syndromes of heat stroke at the first moment. They should wait for a period to come before coming to the hospital. Exactly. Before making this interview, I never knew that the heat would kill the life. And you have mentioned that the possibility of a death after the heat stroke would be between 20 to 80 percentage points. And recently we have followed a case. It's a worker in the open air. He has suffered from the thermal radiation sickness. Yes, when you are working outside, every hour you should drink at least 50 milliliters of drink. If you didn't pay attention to the water intake, you should look at the urine status. And when there is a syndrome, please do not ignore it. You have said the most possible victims of the heat strokes, they are the young children and elderly person. What about the syndromes of the children? There are a lot of cases of children, and also for the pregnant women and the young new mothers. Especially during the first month after delivery, usually, according to the Chinese tradition, the new mothers would stay on the bed. And at this moment, please pay attention to the heat problem. So at the highest stage of the heat stroke, which we call the thermal radiation sickness, at that moment, you will no longer sweat. If you feel really uncomfortable, the best thing you could do is to call 120, the emergency call of the hospital. And what you could do by yourself is to cool the body down. And you should also help your family members. I have a small notice for you. Our emergency hotline is quite overcharged. If you are calling the line, please make the information precise and detailed. And this hot weather is also upsetting everyone. People are anxious about the status. You should explain to the receptor what is the current status of the people in the case and what are the syndromes And you should also make sure that you could be contacted by your phone. The most important thing is to stay calm and don't panic. We could understand the feeling when there is a family member suffering from the heat stroke, but you should keep calm in order to push the things forward. And you have all cancelled your vacations, right? Yes. Everyone's fully loaded. Even for the weekends. We don't have the weekends anymore. We are staying in hospitals every day. We should jointly contribute to this work to the battle against the high temperatures. As introduced by our doctor, you should pay attention to your body status. And once there's a case, please stay calm. And when you are calling the 120, the emergency hotline of the hospitals, please make it clear where you are. Do you have any landmarks in front of you or in the surrounding areas so that the ambulance could reach to you in a shorter time? And sometimes when you cannot wait for the ambulance, you could take a taxi to the hospital. And if you have already called the hotline and asked for an ambulance, and you find that you cannot wait anymore, you decide that you want to come by yourselves, please call the hotline once again to cancel that service. And at this point, you could see that the hospital is fully loaded with patients. If you could find the community hospitals, you don't have to come to the big hospitals because it's very crowded already. I hope that all of you could have a very objective analysis of your current situation, and there's no need for everyone to come to the biggest hospital for the treatment. And I'm now leaving the hospital, and when I'm back to the open air, to the outside world, it's so hot. In recent days, we are following the interviews, and we have talked with people working in different areas, for example, the doctors and the workers. I think that is quite difficult for them to stay in their position, because even standing simply and doing nothing in the open air is already a big suffer for you. According to the forecast of the weather station, in the next few days, the situation could be improved, and the temperature, the heat could be eased. However, it will still be around 32 degrees Celsius, 33 degrees Celsius. Once the temperature goes down, please pay attention to a clothing problem. And in such a scorching temperature days, as mentioned by the doctor in charge, with this synergy, the joint efforts, we could win the battle, and everyone can contribute his own part. For example, we can save more electricity and more water, and altogether we could win the battle. So thank you for your attention. This is the end.